Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. We are so glad to see all of you here. My name is Lisa Weitzman, and I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Benjamin Rose. We are so glad that you could join us today for our second Ask the Expert conversation. This brand new series will bring together people with knowledge and experience on topics that matter to all of us. They will offer practical insights and thoughtful perspectives and provide plenty of time for your questions. We want these sessions to feel useful, like sitting down with a trusted guide who can help make sense of things that sometimes feel overwhelming. To continue this new series, today we will focus on a topic that touches so many of our lives: the emotional side of caregiving. We know that caring for an older adult, regardless of our relationship to them, can be challenging. This is your chance to get clarity, find support, and connect with others. Today's webinar will be recorded, and the recording and accompanying PowerPoint slides will be available after the presentation. They can also be found in the resource library on Benjamin Rose's website, which is linked in the chat. Throughout the presentation, feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A or chat features at the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many of these questions as possible during the Q&A portion of our webinar. We will also address the questions that were already submitted by you during the registration process. Please know that if we do not get to your question today, we will reply directly to you after the presentation. I'm now happy to introduce our speaker, Jenny Burke. Jenny has a Master's of Social Work and is a licensed social worker. She has been delivering care navigation and caregiver support here at Benjamin Rose since 2022. She also has been a caregiver, including for her dad, who had Alzheimer's, her mom, who had vascular dementia, in addition to other major chronic conditions, and her father-in-law, who had cancer. Who better than to speak with us today about the emotional side of caregiving? Thank you, Jenny.
Oh, let's see. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just trying. Okay, there we go. Please bear with me. I'm a little bit of a techno ding dong. But hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad that you've joined us. And before we begin, I just want to say it's a-okay if you need to take a break, if you need to go grab something to eat. It is lunchtime after all. Help your person. Also, because the camera and microphone are turned off, it's absolutely fine if you want to fold some laundry or multitask in some other kind of way. You're juggling a lot of pies right now, and we get that. Okay, so today's conversation, a very brief discussion of caregiving. What is the emotional side of caregiving and why do we care about it? Strategies and tips and resources for caregivers. And I'd just like to say that embedded in the presentation itself are the resources. And like Lisa said, these slides will be available to you after we're through, and you can always reach out. Okay, so let's set the scene because it's why we even need to be having this conversation. Caregiving is really, really hard. It's physically and mentally demanding. It might require special knowledge or skills that we lack. For example, how to keep a wound clean, how to help someone move safely from a bed to a chair, how to communicate effectively with someone who's living with dementia. So lots of skills and knowledge. We're not necessarily a nurse or a doctor, but we still, or a physical therapist, but we still have to learn how to do these things. We don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know how this is all going to play out. That makes it so much more challenging. And caregiving is on top of everything else that we need to do. Also, it's not uncommon for someone to care for more than one person. While my program is focused on caregiving for older individuals, we have a lot of caregivers that we're working with who also have kids. They might be doing kinship care. Maybe they're also caring for a sibling or an adult child who has some kind of disability. So it's not uncommon for someone to be caring for more than one person. So maybe this looks familiar to you. I think this is a nice way of capturing the caregiver experience. Okay, so you can type in the chat if you want. What are feelings that come up for you while caregiving? And Lisa, if you just want to read them out, if people type them in.
I will absolutely do that. So we've got our first one, feeling of being overwhelmed,
Yes.
tired, exasperated, depressed at not having my old life to myself, impatient, frustrated, exhausted,
Okay.
sad, pressure to be perfect, scared, annoyed, lonely. So lots of good responses.
Yes. And in fact, some of those are not even on this list. The list is huge. So many feelings go into caregiving. Now, I would like to point out that not all of them are negative. We can feel protective. We can feel love. We can feel pleasure or enjoyment or joy. We can even feel humor. So, not all negative, but at the same time, we still have so many feelings that are negative. Okay. So I will say, in the course of my work with We Care caregivers, this emotion comes up at least once a week, if not more. I'm talking to a caregiver about guilt over not doing enough, guilt over the decision to move your person into assisted living or a nursing home or bringing in home care, guilt for losing your patients, feeling annoyed, or not wanting to provide care, guilt when you actually take a break and do something fun for you, guilt about being able to do things your person can no longer do, guilt over not actually wanting to be a caregiver all the time. So, later in this webinar, we will revisit guilt and how a caregiver might manage those feelings. But needless to say, there is a lot of guilt that comes with caregiving. Someone mentioned impatience. This photo might look familiar to many of you. Certain older individuals, especially those living with dementia, can resist doing things important for their health, safety, or well being. No, I don't want to take the medication. No, don't help me up the stairs. I can do it myself. No, I don't want to go to the doctor. Another thing that can cause impatience is the difference in speediness between caregivers and those who need care. Caregivers are very busy and have a lot to do. So, come on, let's keep things moving, mom. But an older individual might be retired, has less to do, moves at a slower pace. Of course, they want to go to lunch after the appointment that took you all morning because they have the time. We have a lot of conversations with caregivers about how they are human beings, and it is very normal to feel impatient or irritated on the inside, or to even act impatient with the person that you're caring for. And again, we'll get into that a little more later. Okay, grief. So I'd like for people to type in the chat. Why grief when your loved one is still alive? Why feelings of grief?
So the answers starting to come in are because they aren't the same person, miss the way it used to be. I think grief applies to what I lost when I became a carer. Because I lost my mom a long time ago, her personality, her energy, her being, losing the person that raised you.
Okay, yes, loss. There's so much loss. your way of life, what you used to be able to do and enjoy together, what you expected life would be like at this stage of life, of the way your person used to be, financial loss, parent no longer able to be a parent, spouse no longer able to be a spouse, and a loss of intimacy. I had a very interesting conversation with a spouse who told me that she and her husband used to ride motorcycles, and it was such an important part of their marriage, their relationship, their way of life. And then her husband was no longer able to ride a motorcycle or drive a motorcycle. So they lost that. They lost the connection with the people that they rode with. They lost the being able to go to rallies or go for a ride. It was huge loss. Okay. So lots of feelings that come with caregiving. And I hope that you come from away from this programming recognizing it is very normal to experience these types of feelings. There's nothing wrong with you if you have these feelings. You're not a bad person. Okay, so I love this little guy. I think many caregivers can personally relate. But I'd like for folks to chime in. Why do we care? Why do we care about the emotional side of caregiving? Should we just say, well, these feelings are typical. It's okay to feel them. Do we just need to accept that and just soldier on?
To identify when we are exhausted and ask for help prevents unintentional abuse, affects my health. We have to take care of ourselves too.
Okay, those are really terrific and all music to my ears.
And
Anything?
one
Yeah.
other quick one. It's the put on your oxygen mask first and then your child approach.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I, I just had a conversation yesterday with a daughter, and we talked about that very thing, putting on the oxygen mask for you versus, before you help someone else. Absolutely. Okay, so we care about the emotional side of caregiving. Feelings might be a warning sign. And when we recognize our feelings, we can take action. Okay, first, your feelings might be a warning sign. They could be a warning sign for depression. So many people do not realize that depression is not just about feeling sad. We might picture a depressed person as being incredibly sad, teary, unable to get out of bed. While that certainly can be true, there are other feelings that can be signs or symptoms of depression, including, yes, sadness, but also anxiety, irritability, anger, fatigue, feeling foggy or you can't concentrate. Also, an absence of feeling, numbness, flatness, no longer feeling pleasure in things that used to give you pleasure, and actually feeling like you want to die or you would or others would be better off without you. All right? Now there are other warning signs for depression. You want to think along the lines of 2 weeks or more. Change. Think about change. Change in appetite, change in weight, change in sleep, not sleeping well, sleeping too much, change in energy, abusing alcohol or drugs, and what I call stinking thinking. Thoughts like I'm worthless and I can't do anything right are examples. Also, hopelessness or suicidal thought. Okay. So, depression is not a normal part of aging. and it's not a sign of weakness or a character flaw. It has nothing to do with how strong you are, nothing to do with having a good attitude, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And also, quite honestly, it has nothing to do with if you're still getting through the day, accomplishing what you need to accomplish for your older person you're caring for your children at work. There can be people who are pretty doggone high functioning, but they still are experiencing depression. Okay, depression is a real medical condition that you can't ignore because it doesn't always just go away on its own. Would you tell someone with diabetes or a broken ankle to tough it out or have a positive attitude rather than treating it? So, a very conservative estimate of the percentage of caregivers who experience depressive symptoms is 20%. That's conservative. The thinking is that it's probably higher than this. Um, my guess as to why that rate could be low is because caregivers continue to function. They go to work, they care for their person and others. They're soldiering on, but they're kind of like the walking wounded. Okay, what to do if there's a possibility that you're experiencing depression? Hint, not this. I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's okay. Just soldier on. Please don't do that. Okay. So if you're not in crisis, a good first step is to talk to your doctor. Okay. Also, make use of a warm line. If your person has dementia, an Alzheimer's Association helpline, consider counseling, therapy, or a support group. Ask for and accept help. If people are offering to help, please accept. And also learn options for support and respite. Hint, hint, We Care is a program that can help you with that. The recovery from depressive symptoms is usually quicker and faster when people are connected to support earlier on. Okay, so tips for talking with your doctor about your mental health. Schedule with your primary care provider or even send a message through my chart. Prepare ahead of of your visit. Write down what you're experiencing, all that change. I've lost a lot of weight lately. I'm not sleeping well. And then also, what are your feelings? Consider bringing a friend. Be truly honest and ask questions. Now, if things are getting more intense and you are really feeling very overwhelmed to the point that you're thinking about suicide or death, please reach out for help, including possibly calling 988. You can put this number into your phone. You can always call them if you're concerned for yourself or someone else. But the good news is that depression is treatable, even if you have another medical illness or condition. So please don't ignore those feelings if they're very intense and they last for 2 weeks or longer. Okay, but let's circle back to why we care about the emotional side of caregiving. First, those feelings can be a warning sign. Um, but also, we care because when we recognize our feelings, we can take action and make changes. Okay, so the reality is there's no magic wand we can wave here. Someone has a very serious illness or condition that is life changing and so hard on them and for the caregiver. So we're not going to be able to eliminate altogether these feelings. We're not going to be able to get rid of sadness, get rid of impatience, frustration, guilt. But if there's anything that can be done to make things better, it sure is worth trying. And My colleagues and I are here to say that we do have firsthand experience working with caregivers where they take action, they take steps, and they do actually feel better, if even just a little. Okay, strategies and tips. Here's the first one. Notice and label your feelings. So this might sound a little silly, but I really do want you to give this a try. Self-awareness is a really important first step. So why is this? Okay, first, if a person is feeling angry, impatient, annoyed, irritating, those types of those types of feelings, by actively noticing and labeling what you're feeling, I am feeling so irritated right now. That actually might help to calm you down. It has to do with your brain and kickstarting the problem solving part of your brain versus the raw emotion part of your brain. Okay. So it could help you to calm down and then to also start thinking about, okay, I'm feeling really irritated right now. What can I do? All right. Now that's going to look different depending on you, your person, your situation. We'll talk a little bit more about coping skills and self care, but by noticing that might help you calm down, and then you can actually think about what you can do. Okay, next tip every day self compassion. All right, again, might sound silly or corny, but there's good reason to do this. So, self compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding as you would give to a friend. Now, there is actually some research out there that shows that practicing self compassion regularly can help with lowering caregiver burnout, increasing the emotional resilience in the caregiver, and helping a caregiver to be more effective. And it's really, really interesting research because even if a person doesn't necessarily have high self esteem, but if they're practicing that self compassion, it really, truly can help. Okay, so what does this look like? Self compassion tips. What would you say to a friend if you had a good friend who was feeling the same way as you're feeling in this moment? Say that to yourself. Also, another tip write down a list or think through if you don't have the time or the ability to write it down, but make a list of all the ways that you help your person and oh, by the way, other people too. You might listen to a self compassion podcast or meditation. They're out there. I've put on this slide a 5-minute self compassion meditation. I actually tried it. I thought it was really nice. And then finally, self talk or affirmations. So you don't have to walk around talking out loud. We don't have to do that. I mean, you certainly can. I certainly sometimes say things out loud, but just say to yourself something like, it might not be perfect, but I'm doing a pretty good job. Or I'm trying my best in a really difficult situation. Or I need to remember that I do a lot for my grandfather. Okay, so here's an example. We're going to use one that involves guilt. So let's say a caregiver feels guilty that he can no longer care for his father at home. His dad's going to be moving into assisted living, and the son is feeling so guilty. My guess is there may be some people who are tuned in who can personally relate to this. Okay, a lot of us have had experience with this. So, what are the steps? What could What would the son say to a friend if a friend was feeling guilty for the same reason? Okay, now the son needs to say this to himself. We need to be as kind and caring to ourselves as we are to a friend. Okay. Also, make a list of all the ways that he has helped his dad. He's taken his dad to appointments. He would call his dad with medication reminders. At some point, maybe he moved in with his dad or was sleeping at his dad's house at night. All the things that he could think of. Make a list, and he can use affirmations. Um, Here's one. Because of my help, dad was able to stay home all these years. Often, by the time a decision is made that someone's going to go into some kind of long term residential care, they probably would have had to go in uh, a whole lot sooner, but for the caregiver support so that they could remain in the community. Here's some other possible affirmations the son could use. It's not my fault. My dad uses a walker and has heart failure. Okay. All right. Next tip, make a change. So I want you to try to get into the habit of noticing and labeling your feelings, practicing self compassion every day. And when you notice you are experiencing these intense negative feelings, I want you to think about change and action. What can change about this situation? What can I change? Okay, caveats. You need to be realistic about whether your person can change. It maybe they can't. Okay. So sometimes we have conversations with caregivers, and the caregiver might say, my dad needs to take his medication with his breakfast, but it's not happening. And so what the caregiver needs to think about is, okay, I need to have a realistic understanding that my dad can't do that on his own. Okay, so what can I change to help ensure that he's taking his medication with breakfast? There are many different types of action that a person can take. Okay. They might include the caregiver talks to the caregiver's doctor, the caregiver talks to their person's doctor or other professional, getting educated on your person's disease or condition, developing coping skills, self care, tapping into resources for support or respite. Okay. There's actually many, many actions. I'm trying to condense this a little bit. Um, these are the basics. Okay, so we're going to use another example. Um, the feelings impatience. So Mrs. X is tired and impatient because her husband, who has Alzheimer's, is sundowning and is often up in the night restless. So here are some examples of actions that she has taken. And by the way, Mrs. X is actually a client of mine, and we spoke earlier this week. So Mrs. X spoke to her husband's doctor about what was going on. The result was there was a medication change. Now, medication is not always a magical cure for people being up in the night. However, in this situation, the medication change seems to be helping. It seems that Mr. X is actually sleeping more through the night. But he's still sundowning. He still can be restless and have some agitation in the evening. So Mrs. X has also identified her own coping skills, and she uses these. She tries to use humor, keeping a sense of humor, trying to make light of a very difficult situation, using humor with her husband. She prays a lot. That is a very important coping skill to her. Another one of her coping skills is actually to just walk away and take a little break. Another action that she has taken, which is more to do with fatigue and also with her personal health, is she's not drinking enough water. Her doctor said you need to drink more water. So she fills this is actually an action item. She fills a water pitcher in the AM, and her goal is to try to drink it all or as much of it as possible 5 p.m. Another thing that she does, which is a form of self-care, is pleasure reading. That's why those two are together. More on self-care later. Now, another change or action that she's taking at bedtime, instead of her husband watching a Western, she's going to try turning off the TV and reading the Bible to him at bedtime. So often in the evening, it can be helpful with sleep and sundowning to get rid of the screens, the TV, the cell phone. Okay. Those can interfere with sleep and they can stir someone up. Westerns can be kind of exciting. So instead, they're doing something calm and something that's really meaningful to both of them because they're both quite devout. Mr. X can't read the Bible anymore, but he loves scripture. She's very excited about this idea because reading from the Bible is also very calming for her. So she's going to give this a try. Now, this is an example. This last example is a wait, she's gotten some education on dementia and sundowning, which she is now trying to put into action with a change that she's making at bedtime. And so, again, get educated on whatever the disease or condition is that your person is experiencing. Here are some examples when it comes to dementia. My colleague, Kathy France, gave a fantastic Ask the Expert in September on managing some of the challenging behaviors that come with dementia. I highly recommend people go back and look at it. The Alzheimer's Association is a wonderful resource. The Alzheimer's Association 24/7 helpline. Benjamin Rose also has what is it? Evidence-based programming for family caregivers. You can find that on our website. For those of you who are not contending with dementia, um, you can look to find the equivalent type resources for your person's condition or disease, such as Parkinson's or a specific kind of cancer. Okay, going back to Mrs. X, here's some other actions that she's taking. She has family members who actually will help out sometime. They'll come visit. They will cover so she can get out. They're overdue. She is going to ask them. Okay. Sometimes it's just a matter of asking. People will wait to be asked. Now, I understand some of you are in a situation where you don't have that. We do understand that. But in this situation, she does. So she's going to talk to her grandson, Mr. X's son. There's also, I believe, a niece. Um, she's adding the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 helpline into her phone. And she's going to try a memory cafe to see if that sort of daytime activity stimulation helps with the sundowning. Okay. So lots of things that she's trying. All right. Now, I just feel that I need to say this because we were just talking about impatience. There are situations where irritation, impatience, annoyance, frustration can really turn into anger. Okay. If you find yourself out of control and maybe even you've pushed, hit, grabbed your person, please immediately get help. Talk to your doctor or a mental health professional right away. And if you need help in the moment, call 988. Okay. All right. So I mentioned self-care before. Uh, Self-care is not, some people have this concept of self-care that, it's going to the spa all day or taking a fancy trip um, to Florida. I mean, certainly those are forms of self-care, but self-care is not selfish, and it is all the little and big things that we can do to cope with ongoing difficult and stressful situations. All the little and big things we can do. Okay, question. So, are you a caregiver who fairly often skips meals, doesn't drink enough fluids, skips your medications, or takes them late? Are you overdue on scheduling your own health and medical appointments? Let us know.
Yikes. Yes to all.
No. Okay. Self care, first and foremost, it's about the basics. Okay. All right, sleep is a tough one. I know. If your person is up a lot in the night, that's a really difficult one. However, making sure that you're getting enough hydration, making sure that you're eating well. Look, we are all going to go to that candy bar or the ice cream, but generally speaking, making sure that you're eating regularly and mostly eating in a healthy way, taking your medications. Okay. I had a little personal experience with this summer. My spouse had a medical procedure, and suddenly I found I was not taking my morning medication. And I thought, oh, I have to remember this for the caregivers we speak with. Um, and talking to your doctor about changes and challenges to do with any of these, okay? Self-care. Schedule those overdue appointments. Caregivers are usually really good about keeping up with all the many appointments for their person, but they can also be terrible about keeping up with their own condition, their own appointments. So please get those appointments scheduled. Um, and if you are living with high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, glaucoma, something serious, please keep up with those conditions. Um, Maybe after this webinar, one of your action steps could be to get on the phone and get those appointments scheduled because it's so important. We don't want anything to get worse. And I did actually have a spouse who was not getting in to get her eyes checked. And sadly, it really had some negative ramifications for her. It turned into a very big deal that required a lot of attention, and she was experiencing pain and discomfort, and it was not good. So please schedule the appointments. Um, Take mini breaks and get help for bigger breaks. So we want you to build mini breaks into every day. And the link that's included on this page is an article that one of our We Care care navigators wrote about mini breaks. It's really great. Um, Also, bigger breaks. Okay, bigger breaks could be an overnight, a weekend away, or longer. So that depends on your situation. This might involve the help of a friend or a family member, using home care, or even an overnight respite stay. Bigger breaks can be harder to make happen, but they are often possible. All right, self-care. Create a toolbox of daily self-care activities. So I want you to build your own toolbox of daily self-care activities. And then I want you to build into your daily routine little chunks of time where you do these. All right, now sensory stuff is a highly clinical term. And here's what I mean. A lot of us are revving our engines a lot during the course of the day. We're feeling stressed, or we feel like we're operating up here in rev mode. So this can often mean our heart rate's up, maybe our blood pressure's up, maybe stress hormones are being released. Now, some stress is normal and okay. It's how we meet our deadlines and get things done. But it is bad for the body to be in a constant state of rev, which happens to caregivers. So I'm asking you to make a conscious effort to take moments throughout the day to slow down your body and mind. There's a variety way, there's many ways that you can do this. Taking slow, deep breaths. Believe it or not, going and holding an ice cube is an example of one. Sitting and looking out the window and noticing what you see, closing your eyes, thinking about what you hear. I have a little spinny fidget toy that I keep right next to my computer that I pick up and spin during the course of the day. You find a little 5-minute meditation that you tune into. You find what works for you, where you are truly slowing down and being mindful. Now, I also want you to build in fun and enjoyable things, maybe watching a funny video, painting your nails, movement, very important. Walk, lift weights, yoga poses, dance, just anything that gets you moving. Now, is scrolling through your phone a form of self-care? Maybe. Please be self-aware. If you are scrolling through Instagram and it's making you feel bad about yourself, or you're experiencing FOMO, which is fear of missing out, if it's causing you to feel anxious because you're looking at a lot of like current events and political stuff, that is not self-care. So please be self-aware when you're looking at your cell phone. Self-care also includes connecting with others, those who understand, who care, who fill your cup. Caregiving is very, very isolating, and that isolation is not good for emotional health and well-being. And if you're not able to get out that often to connect, consider inviting a friend over to visit, or see if your faith leader could do a home visit, or try a virtual support group. Courage to Caregivers, which is listed on this page, does virtual caregiver support programming. That's no cost. So you might look into that. But it's very, very important to connect with others. That said, self-care can also include setting boundaries, limits, and even flat out saying no to others. So what does this look like? Maybe you're asking your manager if you could postpone facilitating a webinar because of caregiving. Self-disclosure, our wonderful question moderator is my manager, and she allowed me to postpone being an Ask the Expert because I was caregiving. So that's an example of where I, asked to set a limit, and Lisa was A-okay with it. Thank you, Lisa. Um, but it might also be not taking a phone call from a friend or a family member who's very draining to you or talks your ear off for an hour. Maybe it's saying no to volunteering for your kid's field trip unless you would really enjoy doing that. Maybe, just maybe, it's telling your parent who only wants you to help them that you need to bring in some outside help because you cannot always be there to help them. These are all examples of very important self-care. Okay, along those lines, ask yourself, do I really need to do this? It is okay to say no. And here's some example of some affirmations. I matter too. It's not selfish when I say no. Okay, here's a self-care example. Grief. Oscar mourns. His wife is now living in memory care. Okay. He's experiencing grief from that. She's declining. She's in memory care. He's mourning what he once had with his wife. He's missing his wife. He's mourning what might have been for their golden years. And he mourns for the loss of intimacy. Okay, so here are examples of actions that he has taken to try to manage this grief. These are all examples of self-care. Talking to his doctor, connecting with a friend, taking an extra hour each morning to enjoy his coffee and paper, playing guitar, and going to Chicago for Thanksgiving to be with his brother. Okay. So it's really, really important that you take action and try to make change. The long-term health and well-being consequences are very real for both you and your person. Because again, think about that oxygen mask. You need to give yourself oxygen to be able to then assist your person. You both are at risk of illness, worsening of medical conditions. Yes, stress can contribute to dementia risk for a caregiver. There can be damage to relationships, and there is a potential for abuse and neglect. So this is what we'd like for you to do. There's no magic or easy fixes. Caregivers are in a tough situation with no crystal ball. But that said, there is truly hope, hope that things can be a little better. We like to say that maybe by taking these steps, a caregiver's day won't be beautiful, but it could be a little more doable. So, Lisa, that ends the formal part of the presentation. Should we
Awesome.
should we take some questions?
Yes, please. So first of all, Denny, thank you so much. You gave us so much food for thought, so much great advice. And now the important part, the Q&A. So please, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. You can put them into the Q&A section, whichever is easiest for you. And while we're waiting for questions to start coming in, I do have a couple that I received beforehand. So the first is, can you talk a little bit more about coping skills?
Okay. Absolutely. So think of coping, there are two types of coping skills. The first involve when you need to cope in real time. Let's say your person is refusing to put on their winter coat and you find yourself feeling really annoyed. Okay. So the trick is to try to develop some real-time in the moment coping skills that can help you with that. And what I would suggest is you need to do some advanced thinking and practice to develop your own coping skills. For example, deep breathing is very helpful to some people. It is to me, but I practiced it before I started using it in the moment. Okay. The other type of coping skill is really very much like self-care. All the little and big things that you can do day in and day out to help you feel more able to cope with a challenging situation. So I hope that makes sense.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Next question. Can you give another example of how to handle frustration?
Okay. So, frustration, again, one of those very common feelings. So, I was talking to a caregiver yesterday who is feeling so frustrated because she and her mom are having these conversations where she's saying to her mom, Mom, uh, so and so, who is another family member, is actually um, not helpful. I don't want to go into the details. And so the mom ends up getting really, really combative, and the daughter is feeling very hurt and frustrated. And so what we talked about is, first of all, often it's predictable. What is going to make you feel frustrated? Again, this goes back to the thinking and labeling part. Be a detective. Think about the situations that make you feel frustrated, and then you can think about how you might then approach those situations. Um, in the case with the daughter, we talked about, okay, you're learning that when you say these sorts of things to your mom, she immediately gets combative with you. So actually, don't say those things to her because it's not helping. It's actually stirring her up. So notice, think about the patterns when you tend to feel frustrated, and then think about what you can change.
Is it normal to feel ambivalent, to feel love and frustration at the same time?
Oh my gosh, I should have had ambivalence on the page with all the feelings. Absolutely. And I think ambivalent goes hand in hand with guilt. I love my person. I care so much about them. I feel so terrible that they are experiencing this very, very hard disease or condition. And I really don't want to be caregiving, or I'm so bored, or, what I'm so lonely, whatever it is. So ambivalence is very, very normal when it comes to caregiving. Self-compassion, self-compassion.
I've got one other question from before, but does anybody who's in the webinar now have a question they would like to ask Jenny before we wrap it up? Here's another one. I find it difficult to ask for help from people who offer. What can I do?
Okay, this is very, very common. Why don't we want to ask for help? Many of us have been conditioned to believe we need to be able to handle it by ourselves, or we don't want to burden someone. Okay. But I am here to say, please accept those offers of help. Okay. Especially if you're really struggling. And, help it varies. Um, maybe you don't feel you can ask someone to sleep over so you can go into another bedroom and truly get a break. But maybe you could ask them to come over for a visit or bring some dinner. Um, so please, just please do it. If someone offers, take them up on it.
Um, a couple other quick things. First of all, someone said, could you address frustration with family members who should offer to help? After all, it's their mother too.
Yes. Okay. So this is a really, really tough one that is actually pretty common. Um, why is it that other families don't necessarily step up as much as we think they should? There are many, many reasons for that. But the reality is they're not helping. We explore with our caregivers, well, could you ask them to do something else? Maybe they have asked, they've been told no. Maybe they've asked someone, someone said yes, and then they haven't been reliable. Okay. So it is very common to feel frustrated. And I guess again, there's no easy fix here. I think part of it, part of the dealing with that frustration is an acceptance. Okay, they should be helping, but they're not. And now what? Okay, now where am I going to find that help? Additionally, you might consider a support group because you are not alone. There are a lot of people who are in the same boat when it comes to feeling frustration towards family members.
Thank you, Jenny. And so the questions keep coming out. And so I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut them off, but please know we are keeping all of your questions, and someone from the We Care team will be reaching out to you to answer you directly. So thank you for sharing. Thank you and thank you for practicing exactly what we're talking about in this webinar, which is it's okay. And it's really important to ask for help. So just in the couple minutes that we have left, just want to give a quick overview of what We Care is. Jenny's alluded to it several times. We Care is Benjamin Rose's caregiver support program. We deliver it by telephone and email so that it is most convenient for you. And we look to do two things. The first thing we look to do is to make you feel more empowered in your role as a caregiver. How can we help to answer all these wonderful questions that you have? How can we help get you the resources that you need, whether it's information about a disease, how to have a challenging conversation, or how to sign up for home delivered meals, and everything and anything in between. And the other important piece about We Care is that we're there to help you, to help support our caregivers. How do we work to help you build care teams around you, the way the healthcare system has built care teams around the patient? And how, at the end of the day, do we create space for you to say, I promise to love my person until the end of time, but I never signed up for this. And I'm angry. And I feel so guilty that I'm angry. And I think I'm starting to mourn somebody who's still alive. And I feel so awful. I just can't do this anymore. And to be able to let you know, you do not have to be a hero. You do not have to be a martyr. This is really hard work. What can we put in place for you so that you can continue to care for yourself and for the person for whom you're caring? So again, there's information on this slide on how to connect with us if we can be of help to you. I also just want to let you know that our next Ask the Expert will be held Thursday, November the 13th at noon. And the link to sign up for it is at the bottom of the screen. And the topic for next month will be keeping the happy in the holidays. So Jenny, thank you so much again for all that you brought to this. This is exactly the type of program that we were looking to create, and we're just so excited to see it launch. So thank you again for being a part of today's conversation. Please feel free to stay in contact with us, and we hope to see you next month. Thank you, everyone.